People often believe you need to stack up at least $1 million before you can think about retiring with comfort. Magazines, podcasts, and financial gurus push that figure like it's the golden standard. But here's the twist. Millions of Americans are proving that idea wrong. They're stepping out of the workforce with savings of less than $500,000, sometimes even under $100,000, and still managing to live decent, happy lives. So the big question is, how are they pulling it off? How do you retire without hitting that seven-figure mark and still make it work? The reality is far more common than most people imagine, and it's backed up by numbers. Let's walk through the real statistics, the strategies retirees are leaning on, and the compromises they're making along the way. By the end, you'll see this so-called impossible situation in a very different light. First, let's tackle the numbers. A lot of people assume that older Americans are sitting on mountains of retirement cash. But data paints a completely different picture. According to the Federal Reserve, the median retirement savings for households aged 65 to 74 is only about $200,000. Remember, that's the median, which means half of retirees have less than that amount. Even when you include assets like home equity, the median net worth is closer to $400,000, and that's not per person, it's per household. So if you're worried that your retirement balance doesn't come close to $1 million, relax. You're actually in the majority, not the minority. Here's where it gets interesting. Retirees with far smaller balances are still figuring it out, and one of the biggest reasons is Social Security. Right now, the average monthly benefit is around $2,000, or roughly $24,000 per year. On paper, that might not sound huge, but for many households, it covers a surprising chunk of their core living expenses. And once you are retired with no daily commute or career-related costs, those dollars stretch further than most people realize. Now imagine someone with a retirement portfolio worth $500,000. If they follow the traditional 4% withdrawal rule, they can safely generate about $20,000 annually. With a slightly more aggressive 5% withdrawal, that's about $25,000 a year. Combine that with the average Social Security benefit, and suddenly you're looking at $44,000 to $49,000 per year. That's not lavish, but it's workable. And here's the kicker. Many retirees are couples. With two Social Security checks rolling in, their combined income could land in the $68,000 to $73,000 range, enough to cover most middle-class expenses, including rent. Now let's change the scenario. What if the couple owns their home outright but has very little in investments? In that case, their combined Social Security of around $48,000 annually may seem modest. But with no mortgage to pay, their housing costs plummet. Lower expenses make up for the lower income, and the numbers balance out surprisingly well. Most retirees, though, find a middle ground, a hybrid approach. Picture this. A $250,000 condo fully paid off and another $250,000 invested. That investment generates roughly $10,000 to $12,500 per year, which, when paired with Social Security, provides a workable income stream. It might not scream luxury, but it does allow a comfortable, stable lifestyle. And that brings us to another powerful tool, downsizing. A significant portion of retirees slash their expenses by moving into smaller, cheaper homes. In fact, about 1/3 of retirees downsize within the first 5 years. Downsizing doesn't just reduce housing costs, it simplifies life. One car instead of two. Lower utility bills, less maintenance, and less clutter. That honestly wasn't adding much value anyway. Think about it. That big family house with its hefty property taxes, expensive yard maintenance, and endless repairs? For a retired couple, it's often more of a burden than a blessing. Selling it can unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, while also cutting monthly expenses dramatically. But even with downsizing, many retirees choose to supplement their income. Retirement doesn't always mean never working again. For about 25% of retirees, it means choosing work on their own terms. Some do part-time consulting in fields they know well, others pick up flexible online jobs like bookkeeping or customer support. Many dabble in the gig economy, driving, delivering, or taking seasonal roles. And plenty turn hobbies into cash, whether that's teaching music, selling crafts, or running a small booth at the local farmer's market. The goal at this stage isn't to build wealth, but to keep cash flow steady and reduce the pressure on savings, especially during market downturns or inflation spikes. even working just a couple of days a week can preserve your portfolio longer and make the retirement journey less stressful. Studies even show that this flexibility, being able to cut back on withdrawals in tough times, can significantly improve the long-term sustainability of a portfolio. Another strategy that's gaining momentum is geo-arbitrage. Simply put, this means moving to places where your money goes further. Sometimes it's a shift to lower-cost states within the US, but increasingly retirees are moving abroad. Countries like Portugal, Mexico, Thailand, and Costa Rica are popular because $2,500 a month there feels like double or triple that amount in the US housing, healthcare, groceries. Everything is cheaper. For example, a couple with $500,000 in New York City might constantly feel squeezed, barely covering the basics. But if they move to Portugal, suddenly the same income allows them to live with comfort, enjoy leisure activities, and worry far less about running out of cash. Now, what if someone wants to retire early with $500,000 or less? By traditional standards, $20,000 to $25,000 a year isn't much, but creative approaches can make it feasible. Housing, once again, is the key. The most effective methods include house hacking, renting part of a duplex, living with roommates, or finding creative shared living arrangements. Others take advantage of house sitting, which often provides free housing in exchange for caring for someone's property during the off-season. Eliminate or drastically cut housing costs, and suddenly that $25,000 stretches much further, often covering basic needs comfortably. And depending on how you structure it, that income could even be tax-free. Younger retirees also have the flexibility to live abroad or semi-abroad in low-cost areas. Add in a small side hustle, maybe $500 to $1,000 a month from freelancing or hobby income, and the lifestyle becomes not just possible, but enjoyable. Retirement doesn't have to mean stopping completely. It can mean shifting into semi-retirement, where savings, social security, and part-time earnings all blend together. The truth is, retiring with $500,000 or less is absolutely possible. It takes a mix of flexibility, creativity, and lifestyle adjustments. Millions of people are already doing it. The key is to structure your retirement around what you actually have, not what the experts say you need. If you're willing to downsize, pick up occasional work, or even relocate, you can stretch your dollars far enough to live comfortably. So here's the question for you. If you had to retire today with $500,000 or less, what would your game plan look like? Would you choose downsizing, part-time work, or maybe a cheaper country? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your ideas might just help someone else who's trying to figure it out too.